There is something I have never said out loud before, not because I was hiding it, not because I was afraid, but because some things in a mother's heart are so delicate, so personal, that even finding the words feels impossible. And tonight, as I sit here thinking about my son, I keep coming back to the same question that has followed me for years. What happens when a man who can build rockets, change industries, and dream bigger than almost anyone on earth, finally meets the one person who can quiet his heart, not impress him, not challenge the world with him, not stand beside the success, but reach the place no one else has ever truly reached, the place behind all the headlines, behind all the achievements, behind all the expectations, the place where a son is simply a man searching for love. And lately, something feels different. A mother notices these things, even before words are spoken, even before announcements are made. Sometimes you see it in the way your child smiles, sometimes you hear it in the silence between conversations, and sometimes, you simply feel it, as if life is preparing to turn a page you have been waiting years to read. Before I tell you why my heart feels this way tonight, may I ask you for something small? If this conversation already feels meaningful to you, gently press the like button so this message can find another woman who may need it. Subscribe if you enjoy these quiet talks from the heart, because there is so much more I hope to share with you. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and what time it is where you are right now. And if someone you love comes to mind while listening, please share this with them, because love deserves to be talked about. Most importantly, stay until the end and tell me your thoughts, because I truly want to hear your story too. You know, when people talk about Elon, they usually talk about innovation. They talk about business. They talk about ambition. They talk about intelligence. But very few people ever stop to ask something much simpler. What does his heart need? Not what does he want? Not what does he achieve? Not what does he build? What does he need? As his mother, I have asked myself that question more times than I can count. When he was young, I watched him disappear into books for hours. His imagination seemed limitless. His curiosity never rested. He was always searching for answers, always exploring possibilities, always looking beyond what was directly in front of him. And while the world eventually saw a visionary, I still saw my son, a boy with dreams, a boy with hopes, a boy who, like every human being, wanted to be understood. That desire never disappears. It doesn't matter how successful someone becomes. It doesn't matter how famous they are. Deep down, every person wants the same thing: to be known, to be accepted, to be loved without conditions. Have you ever noticed how rare that kind of love is? Not attraction, not admiration, not excitement, real love, the kind that remains when life becomes difficult, the kind that stays when there are misunderstandings, the kind that survives disappointment, the kind that sees imperfections and chooses loyalty anyway. That kind of love is rare, and perhaps that is why it is so valuable. Over the years, I have watched many people enter and leave my son's life. Some relationships brought happiness, some brought lessons, some brought pain. That is life. Every relationship teaches us something. Every chapter shapes who we become, even the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones, because heartbreak has a strange way of revealing what truly matters. It teaches us what we can live without, and what we cannot. Have you ever looked back on a relationship and realized it wasn't actually the person you missed? It was the future you imagined with them. I think many women understand exactly what I mean. Sometimes we grieve possibilities more than realities. We mourn dreams more than people, and yet, somehow, life keeps moving. The heart keeps hoping. Love keeps returning. No matter how many times it has been disappointed, that has always fascinated me. How resilient the human heart can be. How it refuses to stop believing. Even after loss. Even after failure. Even after tears. Somewhere inside us remains a small voice whispering that maybe, just maybe, the best love story has not happened yet. I believe that voice exists for a reason. Because love is not simply an emotion. It is a decision, a commitment, a daily choice. And the older I become, the more I realize that lasting love has very little to do with perfection. The strongest relationships are not built between perfect people. They are built between imperfect people, who refuse to stop choosing each other. That is what I have always hoped my son would find. Not perfection. Not someone who agrees with him every second. Not someone who fits an impossible image. But someone who understands the weight he carries. Someone who can sit beside him in silence, and still feel connected. Someone who sees the human being beneath everything the world sees. Someone who values kindness more than attention. someone who values loyalty more than excitement, someone who understands that love is built during ordinary days, not extraordinary moments. Because the truth is that extraordinary moments come and go, celebrations end, achievements pass, success changes, but ordinary days remain, and those ordinary days become a lifetime. Who you laugh with, who you trust, who you call when life hurts, who stays when nobody is watching. Those things matter, perhaps more than anything else. Can I ask you something? When you think about the greatest love of your life, what was the quality that mattered most? Was it kindness, patience, honesty, faithfulness, understanding? I would genuinely love to know, because every woman listening carries wisdom earned through experience, and experience teaches lessons no book ever can. As a mother, I have learned that watching your child search for happiness is both beautiful and difficult. You want to protect them, you want to guide them, you want to prevent every heartbreak, but eventually you must step back, you must trust their journey, you must allow life to teach what only life can teach. That is one of the hardest lessons of motherhood. Learning that love cannot be controlled, it cannot be scheduled, it cannot be forced. The right person arrives in their own time, and sometimes, that timing surprises everyone, including a mother. Lately I have found myself thinking about this more often than usual, not because someone told me something, not because I received an announcement, but because certain changes are difficult to ignore. The heart recognizes peace, the eyes recognize happiness, and a mother recognizes hope. Hope has a very specific feeling. It feels quiet, steady, gentle. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand attention. It simply grows. And recently, I have felt that quiet hope growing stronger, almost as if something beautiful is approaching, almost as if a story that took years to write is finally nearing its most meaningful chapter. Not a perfect chapter. Life never gives us perfection, but perhaps something even better. Something real, something lasting, something built on understanding rather than fantasy. Something built on trust rather than excitement alone. And if what I feel is true, if my instincts are right, then there is so much more I want to tell you. Because the woman who captures a man's heart forever is rarely the woman people expect. And what I discovered about that truth changed the way I understand love completely. There is something many people misunderstand about love. They believe the person who changes your life forever will arrive with fireworks, with certainty, with dramatic moments that make everything immediately obvious. But the longer I live, the more I believe the opposite is often true. The most important person can enter your life quietly, so quietly that at first you do not even realize what is happening. And that is what has been on my mind lately. Because when I think about the woman my son could spend the rest of his life with, I do not imagine perfection. I imagine peace. I imagine the kind of presence that changes the atmosphere of a room without demanding attention. The kind of woman who does not need to compete with the world because she already knows who she is. You see, confidence and attention are not the same thing. The world often confuses them. Attention is loud, confidence is quiet. Attention asks to be noticed. Confidence does not need permission to exist. And throughout my life I have learned that the strongest women are often the quietest ones in the room, not because they lack strength, but because real strength does not need constant proof. Have you ever met someone like that? A woman who speaks gently but leaves a lasting impression. A woman whose kindness feels stronger than someone else's authority. A woman who makes people feel seen. If you have, tell me in the comments, because those women are becoming rare, and yet they are unforgettable. As a mother, I sometimes find myself wondering about the conversations that happen behind closed doors, not private details. Nothing like that. I mean the simple moments, the moments nobody photographs, the moments nobody posts online, the moments that quietly build a relationship, because those moments reveal everything. How do two people speak to each other when nobody is watching? How do they handle disappointment? How do they solve disagreements? How do they support each other during difficult days? How do they protect each other's hearts? Those questions matter far more than public appearances. Love is not tested during celebrations. It is tested during ordinary Tuesdays, during stressful mornings, during misunderstandings, during exhaustion. That is where true character appears, and that is where true love reveals itself. I remember when Elon was younger. Even then he carried enormous responsibility. Some people are naturally wired to think about problems other people ignore. Their minds rarely stop working. Their imagination keeps moving. Their thoughts travel farther than most people realize. That can be a gift. But it can also be lonely. Because people often admire what they do not fully understand, and admiration is not the same as connection. A person can be admired by millions and still long for genuine understanding. I think many women listening already know that feeling. Maybe not on a public scale, but in your own life, perhaps you have felt unseen inside your marriage, or misunderstood inside a relationship, or lonely even when surrounded by people, because loneliness is not always the absence of company. Sometimes it is the absence of understanding. And understanding is one of the greatest gifts love can offer. Not agreement, not perfection. Understanding. The willingness to say, I may not see the world exactly as you do, but I want to understand. Those words can heal wounds that years of arguments never could. I believe the right woman for my son would possess that rare quality. The ability to understand before judging, to listen before reacting, to care before assuming. Those qualities sound simple, but they are not. They require maturity, patience, wisdom, and perhaps most importantly, love. Real love. Not the kind sold by movies, not the kind built on fantasy, the kind built on choice. Because every lasting relationship eventually reaches a moment where feelings alone are not enough. At some point, two people must choose each other again, and again, and again, through changing circumstances, through personal growth, through unexpected challenges. That is where commitment becomes beautiful. It says, I am still here. Those 4 words carry extraordinary power. I am still here. After the disagreement, after the difficult season, after the disappointment, after the mistakes, I am still here. Can you imagine how comforting those words are? Especially for someone carrying tremendous responsibility, especially for someone whose life constantly changes, especially for someone who rarely experiences normalcy. The right partner becomes more than a companion. She becomes a safe place, a home, not a physical home, an emotional one, a place where masks can come off, where expectations can rest, where honesty feels safe. Every human being deserves that. No matter how successful they become, no matter how strong they appear, no matter how independent they seem, everyone deserves a place where they can simply be themselves. And lately, I keep finding myself wondering whether my son may have finally found that. Whether he may have found someone who sees him not as the world sees him, but as he truly is. That thought brings a smile to my face. Because mothers spend years hoping for certain things. Not wealth, not fame, not achievements. Those things matter far less than people think. What mothers truly hope for is happiness, genuine happiness, the kind that survives difficult days, the kind rooted in love, the kind that creates peace, and peace is precious. The older I become, the more precious it seems. When we are young, we chase excitement, adventure, possibilities, dreams, but eventually we begin valuing different things. Trust, stability, dreams, but eventually we begin valuing different things. Trust, loyalty, gentleness, emotional safety. Those qualities become priceless, and perhaps that is why I view love differently now than I did decades ago. Love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone whose imperfections feel worth embracing, someone whose presence improves your life, someone who inspires your better qualities, someone who makes difficult days easier, someone who makes ordinary moments meaningful. Have you found a person like that? Or are you still hoping to? Either answer is beautiful. Because hope itself is beautiful. Please tell me honestly. Do you believe true love can happen later in life? Do you believe people can still find their forever person when they least expect it? I would love to hear your thoughts, because I know many women listening have lived through experiences that taught them things I could never learn any other way. And perhaps your story may encourage someone else, who is quietly losing hope tonight. One thing I know for certain is this. Love rarely follows our schedule. It arrives unexpectedly. Sometimes after disappointment, sometimes after heartbreak, sometimes after years of waiting, and sometimes after we have almost convinced ourselves it will never happen. Then suddenly life surprises us. A conversation, a meeting, a connection, a feeling, and everything begins changing. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily, like sunlight slowly filling a room. That is what real love often feels like. Not a storm, a sunrise, gentle, consistent, certain. And the more I reflect on everything I have witnessed throughout my life, the more I realize that the woman who stays forever is usually not the one who tries hardest to be unforgettable. She becomes unforgettable because of how she makes someone feel safe, valued, accepted, loved. Those feelings remain long after beauty changes. long after circumstances shift, long after years pass, and if my instincts as a mother are correct, if what I have been quietly sensing is real, then there is one extraordinary detail I have not told you yet, a detail that made me sit in silence for a very long time, because it revealed something about my son's heart that even surprised me. The detail that stayed with me was not something dramatic. It was not a grand gesture. It was not a public moment. In fact, most people would probably overlook it completely. But mothers notice things other people miss. We notice changes in energy, changes in expressions, changes in the way someone talks about the future. And what I noticed made me stop and think for a very long time. Because for years, whenever conversations turned toward the future, there was always movement, always another goal, another challenge, another mountain waiting to be climbed, another problem waiting to be solved. That is how my son has always been. His mind naturally looks forward, toward possibilities, toward innovation, toward what could exist tomorrow. But recently, something felt different. For the first time in a very long time, I sensed something deeper than ambition. I sensed permanence. And that is a powerful word, permanence. Not because life guarantees anything. It doesn't. But because every once in a while, someone enters your life and changes how you think about tomorrow. Suddenly, the future is no longer just about accomplishments. It becomes about sharing victories, sharing struggles, sharing ordinary mornings, sharing quiet evenings, sharing memories that have not happened yet. And when that shift happens, love begins taking root in a very different way. I think many women understand exactly what I mean. There comes a point when love stops being about excitement alone. It becomes about partnership, about building, about creating something that lasts longer than feelings, longer than circumstances, longer than seasons, a relationship strong enough to survive real life, because real life eventually arrives for everyone. Not every day is romantic, not every conversation is easy, not every season feels magical. There are moments of uncertainty, moments of frustration, moments of fear. Moments when two people must decide whether they are committed only to happiness or committed to each other, and those moments reveal everything. That is why I have always believed the greatest love stories are not the easiest ones. They are the ones where two people continue choosing each other despite difficulty. The ones where respect remains during disagreements. The ones where kindness survives stress. The ones where loyalty remains stronger than temporary emotions. That kind of love becomes rare because it requires maturity. It requires patience, it requires humility, and perhaps most importantly, it requires courage, because loving someone deeply is one of the bravest things a person can do. Love makes us vulnerable. It asks us to trust, to hope, to invest our hearts in another human being, without guarantees. That is frightening and beautiful. At the same time, have you ever loved someone so deeply that their happiness mattered almost as much as your own? Not because you lost yourself, but because their joy genuinely brought joy into your life. If you have experienced that, then you understand something precious. You understand that love is not ownership, it is stewardship. It is caring for another person's heart, with tenderness, protecting it, respecting it, valuing it. The older I become, the more convinced I am that love is less about finding the perfect person, and more about becoming the right person. Think about that for a moment. We spend years asking who deserves our love. But how often do we ask whether we are becoming someone worthy of another person's trust? Someone capable of giving peace, giving patience, giving understanding, giving grace. Those qualities build relationships that last, not beauty alone, not attraction alone, not chemistry alone. Those things may open a door, but character keeps the door open, and character becomes more beautiful with time. One of the greatest lessons life has taught me is that beauty changes, success changes, circumstances change, even dreams sometimes change, but character reveals itself over decades. Character becomes visible during difficult seasons, and when I imagine the woman who could spend forever with my son, character matters more than anything else. A woman who remains kind when kindness is difficult. A woman who remains loyal when life becomes complicated. A woman who remains honest when honesty is uncomfortable. A woman who values love more than attention. Those qualities create something extraordinary. Trust. And trust is the foundation of every lasting relationship. Without trust, love becomes fragile. With trust, love becomes resilient. Trust allows two people to face uncertainty together, to weather storms together, to grow together, to dream together. And that brings me back to something I have been thinking about often. The idea of forever. Forever is a beautiful word, but it can also feel intimidating. Because forever is not built in a single moment. It is built day by day, conversation by conversation, choice by choice, act of kindness by act of kindness. The strongest marriages are not created during weddings. They are created afterward, during thousands of ordinary days, days nobody remembers individually. Yet together, those days become a lifetime, a shared story, a legacy, a family. And family has always meant everything to me, not perfection, not appearances. Family, the people who remain when everything else changes, the people who know your flaws and stay, the people who support you during victories and losses, the people who remind you who you are. Love creates family, and family strengthens love. That connection is one of life's greatest gifts. Can I ask you something deeply personal? When you think about the people you love most, what quality makes them irreplaceable? Is it their loyalty, their humor, their kindness, their patience, their ability to make you feel safe? Please tell me in the comments. I truly believe your answer may help another woman who needs encouragement today. Because sometimes wisdom arrives through shared stories. Sometimes one person's experience becomes another person's hope. And hope is something our world desperately needs, especially when it comes to love. Too many people have stopped believing. Too many people have convinced themselves that meaningful love no longer exists. Too many people have allowed disappointment to become permanent. But I do not believe that. I have lived too long. I have seen too much. I have watched too many unexpected love stories unfold. Love still exists. Good people still exist. Loyal people still exist. Kind people still exist. And meaningful relationships still exist. They may be harder to find. They may require patience. But they are real. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Because the heart was created to connect, to care, to give, to receive. And no amount of disappointment can completely erase that truth. That is why I continue believing in love. Not because it is easy, but because it is worth it. Worth the waiting, worth the vulnerability, worth the effort, worth the risk. And if there is one thing I hope every woman listening remembers tonight, it is this: do not measure your worth by who chooses you. Measure your worth by who you become. The right relationship does not create your value, it recognizes it. The right person does not complete you. They appreciate you, they walk beside you, they support your journey while continuing their own. That is healthy love, that is mature love, that is lasting love, and perhaps that is why my heart feels peaceful tonight. Because when I look back on everything life has taught me about relationships, I realize that the greatest gift a mother can hope for is not simply seeing her child loved. It is seeing her child loved well, loved with honesty, loved with respect, loved with patience, loved with understanding, loved in a way that helps them become even more themselves. If my son has truly found someone who offers that kind of love, then my heart could not ask for much more. Because achievements come and go, success rises and falls, public opinion changes, but genuine love remains one of the most valuable treasures a human being can ever experience. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden inside every great love story. Not that two perfect people found each other, but that two imperfect people chose each other, again and again, year after year, season after season, through joy, through uncertainty, through growth, through change, and in that choice they created something beautiful, something lasting, something worth protecting, something worth fighting for, something worth calling forever. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for sharing your heart, your experiences, and your thoughts. And before you leave, I would truly love to know, do you believe there is still one great love waiting for someone who has almost given up? Tell me your answer in the comments. Read a few other comments as well. You may discover that someone else's story gives you exactly the hope you needed today. Until we meet again, remember this: love is not a race. It is not a competition. It is not a deadline. The right connection often arrives when life is quietly preparing you for it. And when it does, you may finally understand why every previous chapter unfolded exactly as it did. Because sometimes the heart is not being delayed, it is being prepared, and sometimes forever begins on the day you least expect it.